You sit alone in the dark, lit only by the cold glow of the screen. No witnesses, no sound except the quiet hum of machines and the soft rhythm of your own breathing. Out there, the world is asleep. But in here, behind passwords, firewalls, and layers of code, you feel untouchable, invisible. Like you've slipped past the edges of ordinary life and entered a place where rules no longer apply to you. Every keystroke feels precise. Every breach feels like proof that you're smarter than the system built to stop you. And that feeling, it's addictive. Not just the access, not just the power, the silence after you get in, when nothing happens, when no alarm goes off, when the world keeps spinning like it never even noticed. That's the moment you start believing the lie. That you're not just hidden, that you're unfindable. But the most terrifying part was never the day they found you. It was the fact that they may have been watching from the very beginning. By day, you look like anyone else. You move through ordinary spaces, answer ordinary messages, wear an ordinary face. Nothing about you suggests obsession. Nothing about you warns people that once night falls, you become someone else entirely. Not louder, not bolder, just harder to see. While everyone around you scrolls, sleeps, and wastes time, you study. You watch patterns. You learn how people trust the wrong link, reuse the same password, ignore the same warning signs, and little by little, you stop seeing systems as walls. You start seeing them as human mistakes waiting to be opened. That is how it begins. Not with chaos, not with some dramatic act of destruction. It begins with patience, small targets, low risk, quiet experiments, a login page here, a weak point there, just enough to test your nerve. Just enough to feel the rush without stepping too far into the light, and every time something works, something inside you changes. The line between curiosity and control starts to disappear, because this isn't really about money yet. It isn't even about access. It's about the feeling that you can reach into places you were never supposed to touch. That while everyone else lives inside the system, you've learned how to move underneath it. And that's when the danger truly starts, because even when you think you're only watching, the system is already remembering you. The first real breach doesn't feel loud. It feels almost disappointingly quiet. No flashing red screens, no cinematic sirens. Just a moment, a small opening where there should have been none. A locked space giving way beneath your hands like it was never truly locked at all. And when you realize you're in, the room around you seems to change. The air feels thinner. Your heartbeat sharpens. For one suspended second, nothing exists except the fact that you crossed a line most people would never even dare approach. That's the high no one can explain to you from the outside. It's not just access, it's the collapse of a boundary. A private world, a protected system, a place built to keep people like you out, and now you're standing inside it, untouched, invisible. You tell yourself it was clean, controlled, precise. You tell yourself this proves what you wanted to believe all along, that the system is slower than you, weaker than you, easier to fool than anyone admits. And maybe, for a moment, it really feels that way. Maybe the silence afterward convinces you that you got away with it, but silence can lie, because somewhere beyond your screen, something has already changed. A timestamp has been written, a log has been stored, a pattern has begun. You lean back and smile, thinking you just beat the system. Far away on another screen, the system quietly notices you. After that first success, something inside you refuses to go back to normal. The breach is over, but the feeling stays. It follows you into daylight, into conversations, into quiet moments when your body is present, but your mind is already somewhere else, inside another network, another locked door, another test waiting to be broken open. What once felt dangerous now starts to feel familiar. And familiar is where danger becomes addiction. So you push further, not because you have to, because now you need to know how far your control really goes. Bigger targets, sharper risks, less hesitation. Each move becomes less about curiosity and more about proving something to yourself that you're better, faster, colder, that while other people live at the mercy of systems, you've learned how to bend them. But control is a seductive lie. The more power you think you have, the less you notice how much of you is already being consumed by it. Your sleep gets thinner. Your world gets smaller. Rooms feel tighter. Sounds feel sharper. You begin to look at everything differently. Devices, strangers, cameras, signals, routines. The whole world starts to resemble a map of pressure points, waiting for the right hands to exploit them. And somewhere in that shift, you stop acting like someone playing a game. You start becoming someone who needs to win. That's when the thrill changes. It stops feeling like freedom. It starts feeling like dependence. And even before the fear arrives, something in the atmosphere begins to turn, quietly, almost invisibly, like the room already knows you've gone too far. You tell yourself you were careful. You replay every step, every click, every exit point, searching for the comfort of precision. You cleared what mattered, closed what was open, left nothing obvious behind. And that's the trap. Because people imagine exposure as one catastrophic mistake, one careless slip that ruins everything at once. But that isn't how it happens. Not usually. The truth is colder than that. You are rarely found because of one dramatic error. You are found because of 100 small things you were certain did not matter. A rhythm, a habit, a time of night you always return. The way you move through systems when you're confident, the way you hesitate when you're not. Tiny fragments that mean nothing by themselves, but together begin to look less like noise and more like a person, a real one. Suddenly, the silence around you feels different, not empty anymore, observant. You notice something small, a delay, a change, a detail that shouldn't be there, and your stomach drops before your mind can explain why. For the first time, the screen doesn't feel like a shield. It feels like glass. And on the other side of it, you can almost feel someone looking back. That is the moment fear enters the room. Not because you know they see you, but because you realize they might have seen far more than you ever meant to leave behind. You always imagine discovery as a single moment, a mistake, an alarm, a sudden knock at the door, something sharp and immediate that would tell you the game was over. But reality is worse than that. Much worse. Because the truth is, the game may have ended long before you ever realized you were playing against someone else. What if they didn't move because they didn't need to? What if the silence was never proof of your brilliance, but permission? Time to watch, time to measure, time to learn the shape of you without ever letting you feel their hands closing in. While you were celebrating access, they were studying behavior. While you were testing systems, they were mapping patterns. Your hours, your rhythm, your confidence, your fear. Every session became less like an intrusion and more like an introduction. That is the twist that breaks people. Not that they were caught. That they were seen early and allowed to continue, allowed to believe in their own invisibility, allowed to build the case against themselves one quiet night at a time. No warning, no confrontation, just patient observation. A net tightening so slowly it never felt like a trap until it was already closed. And once that thought enters your mind, everything changes. You start replaying every breach, every login, every strange delay you ignored because you wanted to believe it meant nothing. You tell yourself there had to be one exact point where it all went wrong, but maybe there wasn't. Maybe the truth is even more frightening than that. Maybe from the very first touch, the system was already learning how to recognize the person behind the screen. You thought you were watching the system. In the end, the system was watching you become predictable. Once you know they might be watching, you stop thinking clearly. Every decision becomes infected by panic. You change routines overnight. New devices, new locations, new patterns. You cut connections that once felt safe. You erase things you should have left alone. You go silent where you used to be consistent, then overcorrect in ways that feel forced even to you. And that is the cruelest part of fear. The moment you try hardest not to look human is usually the moment you look most exposed. Because a digital trail is not just a path behind you. It is the outline of your behavior. And behavior does not disappear just because you suddenly become afraid of it. It shifts, jerks, flinches. It tells a story in reverse. Someone patient enough can watch the change and know exactly when you realize the walls were closing in. They can see the paranoia in the gaps, the urgency in the sudden moves, the desperation in the silence. You are no longer operating like a disciplined intruder. You are moving like a person being hunted. That's when the room begins to change again. The darkness feels tighter now. The screens no longer glow with possibility, they glare back with accusation. Every notification sounds wrong. Every passing car outside feels deliberate. Every second online feels longer than it should. You start chasing control with both hands, but the harder you grip, the faster it slips away. Because now the trail is not just what you left behind, it is what you are creating in real time. And somewhere beyond your sight, the pieces are being aligned. Not dramatically, not all at once, quietly, methodically. The pattern is closing. The distance between your digital shadow and your real-life body is shrinking. And for the first time, you understand the truth that matters most. They do not need you to confess. They only need you to keep behaving like yourself. When it finally happens, it does not feel cinematic. There is no grand countdown, no dramatic speech, no last-second escape. That is what makes it terrifying. After all the nights you spent imagining how the end would look, reality arrives in the coldest possible form, ordinary, controlled, almost emotionless. A knock, a voice, a presence at the door that instantly empties the room of every illusion you built inside it. By then, the arrest is not really a discovery. It is paperwork becoming physical, a file closing around a human body. Every log, every pattern, every tiny fragment of behavior that once seemed too small to matter has already been assembled into something solid enough to reach through the screen and touch your real life. That is the moment the separation dies. The distance between your digital self and your real name, your real address, your real hands, it's gone. And the worst part is not fear. Not at first. It is the shock of understanding. You did not lose because you weren't skilled enough. You lost because you believed skill could erase consequence, because you treated anonymity like armor, when in truth it was only a feeling, a temporary one. Or something that lasted only until someone patient enough decided to follow the trail all the way back to you. They did not destroy your life in one night. They only traced the shape of what you kept leaving behind. By now, the story stops being about hardware, software, or even the government. It becomes something far more unsettling than that, because the machines did not betray you. The logs did not betray you. The network did not suddenly turn against you. What exposed you was something older, weaker, and far more human. Ego. The quiet conviction that you were different, smarter than the patterns that trap everyone else, disciplined enough to move through dangerous spaces without ever becoming part of the evidence. But people always leave themselves behind, not just in files or metadata, but in rhythm, preference, repetition, the tiny decisions they make when they are tired, confident, impatient, bored, afraid. You can change tools, You can mask signals, you can hide behind layers of distance and false names, but it is much harder to hide the shape of your own mind. And over time, that shape begins to surface in everything: the hours you choose, the risks you repeat, the moments you push too far because some part of you wants to prove you still can. That is the darkest truth in all of this. Surveillance is powerful, yes. Systems are patient, yes. But the reason the trail leads home is because a human being keeps making human choices. The technology only records what pride keeps repeating. In the end, you were not undone by some perfect machine. You were undone by the part of you that mistook control for immunity and intelligence for invincibility. In the end, nothing in the room has really changed. The same walls, the same cold light, the same screen glowing in the dark like it always did. But now it feels different because the power you once felt here is gone. This place used to feel like a hidden kingdom, a private world where you could move without consequence, where you could reach into forbidden spaces and come back untouched. Now it feels smaller, exposed, almost pathetic, a stage where you mistook isolation for invisibility. And that is the final cruelty of it all. You never truly disappeared. You only existed in fragments scattered across systems, habits, timestamps, decisions, pieces too small to frighten you on their own. But invisibility was never the same thing as absence. It only meant no one had assembled the full picture yet. No one had taken the time to connect the behavior, the trail, the person. Once they did, the myth collapsed all at once. So you look back on every night you thought you were untouchable, and the memory changes shape. What once felt like control now feels like performance. What once felt like freedom now looks like a countdown you were too proud to see. And that is the part that stays with you longer than fear, not the arrest. Not the exposure. The realization that the whole time you were building a map back to yourself. You thought you were invisible. You were only waiting for the right person to start looking.